So I chose two actors, one male and one female, and I purposely chose them because of their height and their general appearance. The male was nearly 6 foot and the female was around 5'4", 5'3". They're both good looking people, few blemishes, and they looked older for their age, so although they were 18, they looked around 20, so they fitted the part perfectly, fitting in my target audience age bracket. And they both held a typical flawless look for a protagonist. So yeah, the settings that I used, I chose specifically to show the comparisons, the differences and the similarities between the two characters, but doing it through setting and location instead. The locations that I used were both busy areas, so I chose Wymondham, which is a larger town, and I chose Norwich, which is a city. I specifically chose to record on a Friday at Wymondham because I knew that would be a market day, so I knew that there'd be a lot more action going on, a lot more hustle and bustle. So I got my location spot on there, and then with Norwich I chose a specific place in Norwich where I knew was more of the heart, so I chose Gentleman Walk because I knew people normally walk through that area to get directly into the shopping malls, so I knew that there'd be a lot of movement and colour to the shots if I used a place there. I also used both of them because they were both look traditionally English, so they both have cobble streets and like churches and things like that around them. So I got sort of inspiration there from films such as Notting Hill. The fact that I placed Evie in the town was a very significant moment to the setting because it then automatically gave Ollie the status which I wanted to show subtly between the two. So the fact that he was in a city sort of suggests that he has more money than Evie, who's living in a smaller town. There's also the contrast to the busy atmosphere and the way that they walked. So I wanted to show that Ollie, he walked with the atmosphere, he was in the flow of it, he wasn't rushing around, he was leisurely walking to work. But in comparison to Evie, who was running and pushing past people, not very considerate of the people around her, sort of shows how uncontrolled she is of her life at that moment, and sort of suggests to an audience that she's not the most trustworthy character. So I believe the setting provides the best introduction to the characters. So the reason that I chose non-diegetic sound instead of using diegetics all through the clips that I recorded is mainly because I didn't want it to sound messy, because I use a lot of different areas and a lot of different sounds. If I'd have collaborated them together in the way that I edited my footage, it wouldn't have sounded clean and well cut. Like, it would have had to be, the sound would have had to be rehearsed so it sounds like he's in the same place at the same time, like, because I filmed at different times in the day. When I edited the speech, the clips as well, I noticed that there was people around them, Evie and Ollie, talking, so speech was very adjusted. So that's another reason again I didn't really want to use the diegetic sound which was in the background, as well as cars very loud in the city. It also kept with the conventions of a rom-com, which normally in the beginning you do hear a reel of song over the top, and it's just a way of controlling audience emotions. So they know that in a romantic comedy, if you have a happy song at the beginning, it's going to sort of be happy throughout, maybe some downfalls in the middle, how you'd expect it from like Toddler of Theory or whatever. So it was very much to manipulate an audience's feelings as well. and this is seen in a lot of movies, and an example here, like the Breakup movie, that does the same sort of thing. It has a reel of photos at the beginning of the relationship and introduces the two characters, but controls the emotions by playing the song over the top. So sort of the same idea happens in a lot of rom-coms. It also meant that my opening didn't include too much. If I had included speech, it would have, I think the dialogue would have overridden what was going to happen, and it's kind of pinpointed to the audience what is happening there. I want them to, at the beginning, make up their own minds as to what's happening, and then sort of branch out as the storyline goes on. So yeah, it was simply to I knew that my opening was simply to just introduce the characters and set the scene instead of giving away the plot and the storyline. I just wanted mainly to establish my genre in my opening. Yeah, so here I defy the conventions of a typical rom-com. Because my actors were so young, it would be expected to see them either in scruffy clothes or school clothes, but instead I opted for the professional look and dressed them head to toe in a suit. So a rom-com normally stars as well actors between their 20s and 30s, and my actors were 18, but they looked around 20. So again, going for the lower age bracket of the typical rom-com, so to find that convention, it's but I think I was able to achieve the look of people in that 20 to 30 age bracket by dressing them in that costume, and because they would expect it to be smart and they would expect it to be going to work at that sort of age. So it's very much playing with, I very much played with the age gap in that sense. So I followed the Todorov narrative form, as it's clear that my film is all very linear. So because it started off in the kitchen, doing like day-to-day things, and then it progresses to the rest of his day, so then follows him to work, and then if the film was going to go on, follow him, you know, at work, after work, whatever, however I would plan that out. So I would say that's definitely following the Todorov theory. And then to follow the Todorov theory as well, I further, if I was to do the film further on, I would add disruption. So such as the Evie would have rejected Ollie's offer to go on a date, or something like that, something to disrupt the linear movement of it. And then, yeah, of course, and then this then leads to a new equilibrium, and then so it's just that's a very basic example of how I could have followed Todorov's theory. But yeah, I think if I was to carry it on, like I would have followed that theory, and that is very common in rom-coms. They are very Todorov theory. They follow that convention very well. Yeah, so I definitely wanted to add connotations into my opening because there was no dialogue, and because I wanted to make the audience decide for themselves what was going on. Of course, to make sure they weren't led off astray, I would add just slight connotations in there for them to understand the basic storyline of what's going on there. So because obviously I added both street views in, they were both walking down the street, you could both see whatever they were looking at one point. And the main key in that was the coffee shop. So I had Cafe Nero in Norwich, and I had the coffee shop in Wyndham. And yeah, I did extreme close-ups of both of the names to highlight that was the significance in that piece right there. if you notice it again, Ollie does look into Cafe Nero, and this again was supposed to be a connotation, as it was supposed to be that he's looking for her, so because then obviously she looks into a different coffee shop and she's sort of like, oh, I should have been in the coffee shop in Norwich because she should have not been late for work, you should be at that coffee shop. So it's kind of a connotation there that he looks into the coffee shop, and it just again is another link for them together. And the significance of the big issue man, I made this a connotation of the type of person in which Ollie has become because of this woman. Although he isn't the wealthiest of men, like, yeah, he's doing well for himself, but he's not obviously a millionaire at this point. The love for her makes him rich, and his generosity sort of overrides him. So, and it again just shows Ollie's kind nature, adding to the typical protagonist and audience participation. They're very drawn into Ollie and like the sort of person that he is. It also defines the status of which Ollie is, so him in a suit and the big issue man in rags sort of shows to the audience the reason for his journey must be business, because with Parallel he wouldn't be in such well suited clothes if he wasn't doing something higher class. So the parallel of them two standing next to each other, but the connection that they have together, I think shows connotations completely of the person that Ollie really is, and I really wanted to show that. I wouldn't say I've really challenged the conventions, mostly developed them. I think with a rom-com it is what it is, and to challenge it, I feel personally, I don't think it would work as well as it does. I like the way it is, so just developing the narratives further is really what I did, yeah. So really, how I think I developed it was by using younger actors in my film. So because my actors looked 20 and my target audience was 15 to 25, they were slap bang in the middle of that target audience. So from either ends of the age bracket, I felt that they would be able to connect with my actors much more easily. So that's really how I think I've developed it. I think using younger actors for a younger audience makes it a bit more real and a bit more easier to relate to the storyline. So the reason that I used Evie and Ollie at the beginning of the film was because I believe typically of a rom-com that you'd see the male and the female, they're the main leads, and it would establish my genre well. So normally as you see a male and a female parallel next to each other, you kind of think, oh, love interests, you know, so it was just to back up my genre even further, and it meant that my audience viewers would be able to establish the most important characters of the film, so they knew as soon as they saw Evie and Ollie that these are the two people that they're going to see all the way throughout the film.